I only had to phone down 5 minutes to say goodbye to Mandy. And within 5 minutes he came in. And within the space of 5 to 10 minutes, he boarded me door.
Every day across the world, 137 women lose their life at the hands of their partner. This case is one example of these women. There are a couple of really strong beliefs that we have about relationships that are actually contributing to murder. And one of those beliefs are that once you enter into a relationship, it's for life. That belief is probably the most dangerous of them all, because what the authorities and domestic violence organisations who help these people have discovered is separation is at the heart of most of the intimate partner murders. This case brings us back to the heart of Dublin City, to an apartment block on St James's Street called the Anna Livia Housing Complex. It is owned by the charity housing organisation Oakley, who work with people that are on the government housing list because of low income, single parenthood and the elderly. Here in one of these apartments lived 27-year-old Amanda Jenkins. She was an only child to Anne and her husband John, who by October 2007 had already separated, and Anne had entered into a new relationship. Amanda, also known as Mandy, grew up on the south side inner city and was very close to her mother. They both lived together for a while and even worked together in the kitchen of a local pub. But in 2005, Amanda and her mother would go their separate ways. Amanda got a job in a vegetable shop on James's Street and also was accepted to receive a place to live in the Anna Livia complex. So things were going pretty good for Amanda. She was well liked by her co-workers and neighbours. She was also in a long-term relationship with a man named Stephen Carney. They had known each other for about 10 years and had been together 7. When Amanda got her apartment, he would move in with her also. On Saturday, the 6th of October 2007, Anne would try and contact her daughter Amanda, but there was no reply. So then she would reach out to Carney and he would tell her that Amanda was sick in bed asleep and her phone was off. Later that day she would try again, but still no answer. Again she spoke with Carney and he repeated that she was in bed asleep. Anne's last words to Carney were, "Well, make sure you look after her." His reply, "Of course I will, love." It wouldn't be until the next day, Sunday, the 7th of October, when Anne was at home listening to the news on the radio, that she would hear of a 27-year-old woman found murdered in James's Street and that a 33-year-old man had been arrested. Anne knew straight away that it was her Amanda, and she stood up from the couch to race to James's Street. As she did so, a detective pulled up outside her house and her worst nightmare was realised. Gardaí had received a phone call from Carney that morning. He stated that they needed to come to the Anna Livia complex, that he had killed his girlfriend and he tried to kill himself also. As the Gardaí entered into the complex and the top floor apartment, they found Carney in the living room. He told the Gardaí that Amanda was in the bedroom. She was on the floor with a pillow under her head and a duvet over her. When they pulled back the covers, poor Amanda's face was the same colour as the pillow that she lay on, which was blue. Carney told the Gardaí that he had strangled Amanda in the early hours of that morning, but this would later change. In fact, Amanda had returned home Friday the 5th of October at around 7:45 p.m. Later Carney would arrive home. A row would ensue after Carney went crazy over Amanda smoking cannabis. He would say that he lost control after she hit him. He would go on to tell Gardaí that he put his hands around Amanda's neck and began to squeeze. He admitted that she went blue and still he didn't stop. Finally, he let go and was surprised that she didn't wake up. But rather than get her help, he dragged her into the bedroom, covered her up, took €4,000 that Amanda had received from a fellow employee, which she kept in the apartment, and he went on a drink and drug binge for the weekend. So for 2 days he lived with Amanda's body in the apartment. Only on Sunday, when I presume he somewhat sobered up, did he ring the Gardaí to come and get him. Carney was arrested and brought to the local Garda station and held for questioning for the standard 48 hours detention. The apartment was sealed off and forensics arrived. Unfortunately, Amanda's body could not be removed until the apartment had been examined. Eventually, her body would be removed to a city hospital, where state pathologist Dr. Mary Cassidy would do a post-mortem. Her findings showed that Amanda had been strangled. On Tuesday, the 9th of October, Carney was brought to a special court sitting, where he was charged with Amanda's murder. He was then remanded at Clover Hill Prison in Dublin. Media would also get a hold of his name, and who Carney was would come out. It was said that Carney was well known to the Gardaí. In 1996, he was a member of a gang of 11 that beat a defenceless HIV-positive addict to death. Josie Dwyer and Alan Byrne were set upon by the gang, and poor Josie did not survive. Carney was charged with manslaughter, but pleaded guilty to the lesser offence of assault and disorder. He obviously got a slap on the wrist for this, as 2 years later, as a member of the Real IRA, he staged a raid on a cash van outside Ashford in County Wicklow. He was sentenced to 8 years for his part in the botched heist. Of course, he only served 6 years, and while on day release, he would start dating Amanda. When the state pathologist Mary Cassidy finished her post-mortem, Amanda's body was to be released to the Jenkins family for her burial. But Carney's defence had other ideas. He applied for a second post-mortem to be undertaken by an independent pathologist. This caused fierce delays because of scheduling and actually finding a pathologist that was not employed by the state and within the jurisdiction. This added so much more pain and suffering to the family, as it would be 2 weeks before the family would get to bury their beloved Amanda. On the 20th of October, Amanda was brought to St. Patrick's Church in Ringsend in Dublin. 200 of Amanda's family, friends and neighbours attended, and the priest that officiated the funeral told the congregation, "The name Amanda was of ancient Greek in origin, meaning one who is deserving of love and compassion. He said it was fitting that they were all gathered there to mourn someone who was indeed deserving of love and compassion, which had not been present for Amanda in the moments she died." Amanda was then laid to rest in Palmerstown Cemetery. On Tuesday, the 4th of November 2008, Carney's trial began at the Central Criminal Court in Dublin, and Justice Paul Carney was the judge overseeing the proceedings. A jury of 8 men and 4 women had been sworn in. The defence's opening statement said that Carney admitted to strangling Amanda, causing her death. This is not at all in question, and it had been agreed between the defence and prosecution that this was fact, but the defence put forward that he did not intend to kill Amanda and therefore was pleading not guilty to murder. Next, Carney's statements that he made to Gardaí after his arrest were read out in court. He said that he arrived home about an hour after Amanda on the Friday evening of the 5th of October 2007. He went on to say that when he entered the apartment there was a smell of cannabis and an argument ensued. Other reports would say different later. Considering that Carney was basically a drunk, a druggie and a gambler, a smell of cannabis in the apartment would not exactly bother him. Reports would say he went mad over the fact it was his cannabis being used. Amanda's mother would go on to say about the €4,000 being missing from the apartment, and she thinks Amanda confronted Carney about the missing money and was going to throw him out. This, to me, seems more feasible. Anyway, back to Carney's statement. He said that Amanda was sitting on the couch while he stood over her shouting at her. He leaned in towards her and she gave him a clatter across the face. With that, Carney said he grabbed Amanda by the throat and she fell to the floor. Carney climbed on top of her and continued to strangle her, even when he saw her turn blue. When he realised she was dead, he dragged her into the bedroom and left the apartment to go get drink. Later, he returned to the flat and continued his binge. He also told the Gardaí on the Sunday morning he tried to hang himself and cut his wrists and took a number of tablets. It was then finally he decided to ring the Gardaí. When asked by Gardaí did he intend to kill Amanda, he said no, he just wanted to frighten her. Amanda's mother was next to take the stand. She says she had last spoken to Amanda on the Friday evening of the 5th of October. She said the last time she had seen Amanda was the Wednesday before, when she had called around to the apartment. When she was leaving to get the bus, Amanda walked downstairs with her, and they both walked together to the bus stop. During that time, Carney rang her phone and texted to know where she was. She was literally only gone 5 minutes. This would not be Anne's first time witnessing Carney's control over Amanda. Over the years, she would be witness to Carney's violence towards her. There were nights where she had to get to Amanda's apartment to rescue her, after Carney hit her and put fists through walls. He alienated her from her family and friends. He had to know where she was at all times. On this Wednesday night, Anne begged her once again to leave Carney, but Amanda reassured her she was fine and she could handle Carney. 2 days later, she was dead. Carney's movements were also outlined that Friday the 5th of October. Carney had been off the drink that week, and on the day he drank and took drugs and was in and out of the betting shop all day. It was proven that he had lost €4,600, but won €7,400. So I would safely say that this was Amanda's money he was gambling with. The state pathologist was next to take the stand. She said when she arrived, she noted that the apartment was tidy and well kept. When she entered the bedroom, Amanda was lying face up on the floor, with her head on a pillow and a duvet over her. She said Amanda was very badly bruised around the face and neck area. She assessed that Amanda had been dead more than 24 hours, as rigor mortis was wearing off. Amanda had been moved to where she was found after she had died, and the cause of death was neck compression or strangulation. There was no attempt of resuscitation and no sign of a struggle. Pictures of the scene and Amanda's body were shown to the jury. Amanda's mother was clearly distressed at this stage of the trial, and she was physically shaking when the photos were shown. Eventually, poor Anne stood up bolt right and left the courtroom, followed by family members in order to support her. On the 4th day of the trial, the prosecution and defence began their closing statements to the jury. The prosecution asked the jury to disregard what they had heard regarding Carney's 3 unsuccessful attempts of suicide, saying it was not relevant and would not help them decide whether Carney had intended to kill Amanda. He reminded them that there had been scratches on Carney and that Amanda had fought for her life. The defence was the next to approach the jury with their closing arguments. They stated that Carney had not intended to kill Amanda, and he had momentarily lost control in response to the argument the two of them had. Carney had told the Gardaí the full truth when he rang them that Sunday, and had been cooperative in answering all their questions. He said the proper verdict in this case would be manslaughter and not murder. The defence then rested. Mr. Justice Paul Carney then gave his instructions to the jury and told them there were 3 verdicts open to them: guilty of murder, guilty of manslaughter, or not guilty of any offence. He explained there was no question whether Carney killed Amanda or not. The question was their intent? Deliberations began that day and went on for 3 hours. The jury were then sent to a hotel overnight, and deliberations began again the next morning. After an hour, the jury returned with a verdict of guilty of murder. Amanda's uncle then gave a victim impact statement before sentencing. He said his niece was special and loving, and was an only child and had a very close relationship with her mother, who was now consumed by grief. All they had were memories, while the Carney family still had their son. Carney's defence read a letter to the court from Carney, where he stated that he was sorry for the pain he caused the Jenkins family, and he would do anything to take back what he had done. After this, Carney's background was outlined for the judge. He had a total of 9 convictions previously, including the attempted armed robbery of a cash van and the death of Josie Dwyer in a vigilante-type beating. Carney was then handed down a life sentence. The Jenkins family would state it was a hollow victory, as it didn't bring back Amanda. In October 2010, Carney brought an appeal to the appeal court, and it was dismissed 9 months later. After Carney was convicted of the murder of Amanda, he was kicked out of the Real IRA. When he arrived at the high security prison in Portlaoise, He was refused admission to the dissident wing because of the evil actions, and he soon became best buddies with Joe O'Reilly, who murdered his wife Rachel. I'm unsure if many of you are aware of the dissident section of Portlaoise Prison. Paramilitary prisoners from the real IRA, the new IRA, and the unaligned Republicans are held mainly on Block E in the prison. They are not seen as criminals and therefore have greater freedoms compared to other prisoners. They do not tolerate drugs on their wing, and if anyone is found with drugs, they are frog-marched off the wing and they have to be put elsewhere. They also do not tolerate violence against women and children, and hence Carney being kicked out of their group and not allowed onto their block. There are currently around 30 paramilitary prisoners on the dissident Republican landings, of which around half are aligned to the new IRA. So while some of you might think after the Good Friday Agreement that the IRA were disbanded and no new groups were formed, believe me, they are still alive and kicking, behind bars and outside. In September 2020, it was reported that Carney was allowed out on day release from Whitfield Prison to meet secretly with members of his family, and was at the time preparing for a third parole board meeting to secure his release. In 2021, he was moved to Shelton Abbey Open Prison in County Wicklow, where they prepare prisoners to be released back into society. Since his transfer, a new regime was put into place by the Minister for Justice. The old regime, the Minister, had the power to make the final decision for release of prisoners, but now a newly established parole board has been approved where politics is separated from the criminal system, and so release recommendations are left solely to the parole board. It was not good news for Carney, as it was also decided that a minimum term to be served before applications for parole are heard were increased from 12 years to 20, giving power also to judges that they can recommend up to 30 years minimum. This was huge news all around, but especially for the victims and their families. How long this will take to come into existence is uncertain, as the first parole applications from 7 years to 12 years took from 2019 to 2021 to be implemented. So fingers crossed it won't take as long. But already Carney is panicking and has taken action against the Minister, saying he should be excluded as he was convicted under the old Act and therefore should progress in his bid for release. The matter came before Mr. Justice Charles Meehan, who on an ex parte basis granted Carney's lawyers permission to bring the challenge. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what 2023 will bring. Anne would say about Amanda in an interview after the trial, "She was such a pretty girl and she didn't even realise it. It was obvious that he was violent towards her, but the more you pushed, the more you were pushing her away. So you had to be very, very careful about how you dealt with her." So I would listen to Anne. It's hard to rescue someone that doesn't want to be rescued. It has to be their decision. All you can do for them is to be there if they are lucky enough to get out with their life.
First time I was after it happened to Mandy, the first time I was at that bus stop, I was just saying to myself, this is the last time I see my daughter. It was the last time I told her that I loved her. I said goodnight to her, not knowing that I'd never see her again.